I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello and welcome to the Unidentified Celebrity Review. It's an exciting time in the world of ufology. The NDAA language has been finalized, and it seems inevitable it will be passed as is, with language establishing a government UFO agency, one that is accountable to Congress and the American people. It looks like Christmas came early for us. And while many have concerns about certain specifics, now is a good chance to reflect on the progress made in the last few years. 5 years ago, we were faced with 70 years of gaslighting, with the government refusing to admit that there is anything beyond their ability to ascertain. We now know that is false. Whether there is more information hidden from us, or whether the unknowns will be the non-human intelligence that most of us hope it is, the situation has dramatically changed. And while there might be disappointment for some ahead, an open and honest conversation can now be had. And more importantly, with the government taking this issue seriously, the stigma the issue faces will almost certainly be diminished. This is a major milestone for disclosure, and I'm thankful for everyone who had a hand in pushing this snowball downhill. I can't wait to get into all the details. We have some great guests today to help us digest this historic legislation. So let's not delay that any further. Please join me in welcoming our co-hosts, Luis Jimenez and UFO Jane.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey.
Happy Wednesday, guys.
Yeah, exciting time, exciting week.
Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is. There's a lot of stuff going down. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. But before we do, hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP, UFO, science, emerging tech, and futurism. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is Rather Be Squidding, and Jane, Kyle, UFO Jane. Before we get started, of course, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. I want to remind you guys that we have a podcast. Yes, this show's available on podcast as soon as it's done airing. So check it out. Leave us a rate and review. We're available on Spotify, iTunes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the show. It's the absolute best way to support the show. You could also, if you like, we've got super chats that are open, and we've got our Patreon. We are a public access channel, and we're supported by viewers like you. So please, if you can, think about joining the Patreon. It's a great way to support the show. Let's see here. What else am I missing? Oh, everybody's links, including our guests, will be in the description below. Rather and Jane's are there as well. And we've got merch. So if you want to buy a t-shirt, we got some pretty cool stuff on the merch store. So go check that out as well. So we got some news. We've got articles that have been written by some really great contributors to this UAP discussion. We've got two really great guests. We've got a surprise guest. I'll give you a clue. He may or may not walk on water. I've never seen it, but those are the claims. Those are the claims. So stay tuned for that. He'll be joining us in hour 2. Let's go ahead and bring our guest, shall we, guys?
Yeah.
Do it.
Excellent. Okay, so you may know these two characters. One of them really is a character from the show and podcast Calling All Beings that covers pretty much the same things that we do here. They have the conversations, they bring on the cool personalities, and they pick their brains. And it's a really cool show. It's super positive. Nathan and DJ go out of their way to highlight voices and talk about other shows and other people, and making sure that the community is aware that there's a lot of other shows out there. There's a lot of other perspectives. and none of them are right, none of them are wrong, but makes people aware of them. So it's really, really cool. It's one of my favorite parts about the show. But let's go ahead and bring on Nathan first, who was raised in the South and spent most of his younger days in church. His seminary graduate who ultimately left the church behind to start a career and family. When he's not keeping DJ in line on Calling All Beings and researching the phenomenon, he likes playing video games with his gaming friends of 15 plus years. Let's bring him on. Nathan, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys?
Not a mucho.
Hey.
Glad to
How
have
are
you
ya?
here.
Yeah, good to see y'all. Good to be here.
So let me ask you something before we bring on our next guest. How do you wrangle this guy
you
on
can't.
the show?
It's
How do
impossible.
you
I've
wrangle
stopped trying.
him?
You cannot do it. You're on along for the ride here.
Man,
Yep.
boy, yeah, we are all about to get aboard the DJ.
That's right. He's driving this bus now, so
He
just a
is.
heads up.
DJ's been on the show a few times. He's actually a really great source to go to because he's a former Air Force pilot. He's retired Air Force Special Operations flight engineer, to be specific, and private pilot with over 4,000 hours of flying, mostly TAC aircraft and combat talons and a bit of the AC-130W gunships, 12 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, 8 military, and 4 as a civilian. Without further ado, DJ San Marcos, what's shaking, my brother?
What's up, man? What I want to say, Luis, is I'm the special eds kid that made it to special ops. Special eds kid right here, me, that made it to special ops. Okay, baby? Now, this brother right here, Luis Jimenez, he came out on that wagon train from Miami, trucked it all the way across the country to the California coast. He unasked that thing, got off and said, looked around, saw LA and said, you know what? I'm going to colonize right here. That's what's up, people. Put those hands together for Lou Angeles, Luis Jimenez. Yes!
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction to my own show.
My other brother right there that we're talking about with the shirt we're talking about. Rather be dropping knowledge on you, zeros and ones. Rather be squidding, yes! I gotta lower it down for this. Hold up. Ain't nothing plain about UFO Jane. Do you know what I'm saying right there? Nothing plain about UFO Jane, Texas. Oh! So put your hands together and give me an amen on UFO Jane.
Thank you.
And my brother right here, the smarter half of this marriage. I got to pay Andy McGrillen a dowry because this dude called into my show and ended up being my co-host. Put your hands together for Money Nate Owings. Yes. That's it. That's a wrap. I'm done.
Incredible.
Wow. Dude, you are the Ric Flair of ufology.
Yeah, quite the hype
Dude,
man.
Quite the hype man.
Now I
It's
can calm down.
Almost remind, take a breath, relax. It's almost like that character in that movie. What is it with where they're jousting? What's that jousting movie?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they're teaching the king how to joust and all that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, he's a peasant that turns into a knight. Oh, that's it, Knight's Tale. There you go, Knight's Tale. Okay, so. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the. We had a $2 from Haley. Each says, "Can you fade out the music?" I can definitely fade out the music. Absolutely.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
For $5.
The party's over.
Yeah, man, you're gonna have to up that.
I can make sure the music's never played again, Haley. Let's see. Then we also had a $30 super chat from Grant Levac. Thank you so much. By the throbbing carotid artery of Lou Elizondo's neck, it's UCR and C.A.B together at last. Oh, how I have longed for this day. Thank you for keeping the community informed, inspired, and entertained. You are welcome. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. You guys always coming strong with the super chats, and I really appreciate it. Well, we got a lot of news, you guys. But before we get into the news, I kind of wanted to highlight C.A.B and what that acronym means. Calling All Beings. It's a show that you started, DJ. I know first as sort of like it's funny how this channel sort of evolved into what it is today. You were talking about MMA, NBA talk, and UFOs, and then life perspectives, and then it sort of melded into this now UAP UFO show that's bringing on some killer guests and really uniting the community under this positive vibe that you bring to the table. So can you start there, I guess? Tell us a little bit about how this evolution started and how you met. Well, you told us in the intro how you met Nathan, but what was it? Because that's sort of a similar story to Rather down there. He called into the show. All of a sudden, he's part of the show. And so I'm guessing it's sort of the same thing. You fell in love as soon as you heard him, because I have heard him talk, and I kind of want to steal him for our show. I'm not gonna lie.
He's phenomenal. He's I love listening to him. Heart bubble emojis when he's talking, but and I was telling that, and it's true. I started podcasting back when I was in the Air Force, so maybe 2009 or 2010. I started MMA podcasting and was MMA all the way up until one day, after listening to an interview with Dave Fravor, I said, I told my story on air about my sighting, and I said I'm going to start talking about UFOs because I love this topic. I had to hide it, obviously, for obvious reasons. And I said, okay, I'm going to start to transition. So I had you on. You were, by the way, Luis was giving of his time when not a person on UFO Twitter knew who I was, but I contacted him and he came on a couple of times. Then I had on Andy twice also. And in the second time, Nathan called in as a caller. And as he began to speak, Andy and I were both like, uh-oh, because Andy had never heard Nathan speak. He had only gotten his messages on air. And Nathan was just an icon. So you didn't see his face or his emotion. So I said, hey, thank you for calling in. I'm going to DM you. I'd like to have you on again. Let's talk. And so we did a couple of episodes together under the old banner. And then I said, hey, would you like to come on and be my co-host? And he said, definitely yes. And then I didn't, he actually thinks I tried to get him to show himself, and I didn't. I actually never asked him to show himself. I said he will come to that conclusion on his own when he's ready. And he did. And so when C.A.B started as and by the way, I mean, I knew how to podcast, but he's the one who did all this. He's the one who did all the branding. A yoga teacher, by the way, let me make sure I get this out there. There was a yoga teacher named Christine Normand who came up with the Calling All Beings name. Or excuse me, Nathan came up with a name. She said, you guys should be cabbies. You should have an alien in the front and Bigfoot in the back. And I was like, awesome. And I told that to Nathan and so on and so forth. So basically that's how it started. And Nathan is the one that made it a visual medium. And I love the guy. I mean, we see, basically we both love positivity. We wanted to bring positivity to UFO Twitter. And these basic things that we're not doing negativity, we're not jousting at people, and we're wanting to push up other people's shows. And in fact, we're doing these community shout outs where we'll have people on that nobody knows, or shout them out, someone that has positive opinions, but no one's ever heard of them. So we both agree on all those things, even though we're quite different.
Yeah. Matthew Wright says here that you stole Eric Davis's shirt.
Doctor, you got to play the spooky music for any mention of either Eric Davis, Dr. Eric Davis, Kit Green, Jim Semivan, Rick Doty.
I don't have spooky music.
But it's in my head when I hear those names. It's like, woo! Every time I hear those names, you guys know who I'm talking about, right? Hal Putoff, Admiral Wilson. I'm like, woo!
Well, all of them are. Anyone in one of those three-letter departments is always, that music seems to pop up. But Nathan, I guess going to you, what compelled you to call into this guy's show? And then
I'm asking myself that question every day.
How easy was it for him to convince you? Yeah, all right, I'll do this show. Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So as he mentioned, I was a long time kind of listener of Andy's show, and just a shout out to That UFO podcast, the great work that they do, Andy and Dan. And so he had posted a link. I was on his Discord, their private Discord, and he posted a link. He said, hey, I'm going on with this guy, DJ. If anybody wants to just jump in, and it was a Zoom link, I think, wants to jump in and talk, like, go for it. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'll do that. There'll probably be a bunch of people in there. We'll have a little chat. I jumped in. I didn't realize, like, I was literally joining, like, the Zoom. And so I jumped in with these guys and just started chatting. And really hit it off with them. And as DJ mentioned, kind of approached me after the fact. We had a conversation about starting a show. It's something I'd always kind of thought about doing, honestly, but I'd been more of a UFO lurker, for a long time. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's do it. It'll give me a chance to try some new skills, like all this stuff, the art stuff and the production. I mean, as you guys know, it takes a lot of work to do what you do, and you guys make it look so easy. So I had to learn all that stuff on the fly, and it was really a fun journey. And we're refining our process as we go. I don't know which one of us is the alien and which one of us is Bigfoot, but we're having a good time doing it and enjoying the conversations that we've had. We've actually had conversations with everybody, I think, who's a part of UCR. At least I have not had a conversation with you, Luis. Yeah. I know DJ has, and we haven't had a conversation with Jazz, but we will be. And I think Daniel Miller is the only other one. But Mataluni, UFO Jane, rather, we've had chats with all of y'all and then just really enjoy what we get into.
Yeah, well, anytime. That's why I wanted to bring you guys on the show, because I haven't spoken to you, Nathan, and I do like how you guys are almost like a yin and yang. DJ brings the energy, you bring sort of the calmness to it, and it's a good mix. So I guess where did you? Because I don't know your entire backstory. So sure. What made you interested in this topic? Are you coming from this as an experiencer where you've seen or been close to something? Or are you coming at this from, you're just curious, and what was it that sparked that curiosity to sort of pursue it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've answered this question differently every time. So I'm going to give you a different answer to this than I had before. The truth is I've been thinking about non-human intelligence for half of my life. Like I was an active part of a church community for my entire young adult life. And if you really step back from church, which I did in my adult years, stepped back from that and have been out of the church now for quite a long time, that distance has actually made it alien to me now. And so looking back on that experience, when you're talking about religious belief, and we're talking about concepts of God, spiritualism, all those kinds of things, these are essentially the same kinds of concepts that we often use to think about the phenomenon. And so it's not really that weird of a transition. In fact, I find it to be a pretty helpful interpretive lens for looking at the phenomenon generally, because, having been really close to belief and a fervent believer for a long time, and then pulling away from that and going through that period of questioning and doubt and existential dread that most of us go through as we become adults, you kind of process all of that stuff and you come out on the other end a different person. But in my case, at least, I have sort of a language that helps me, I guess, like translate some of these ideas into more approachable concepts for people. It helps me to hold these things out a little bit, because I think you can get really close to this stuff and it can become really emotionally powerful, and you can't see a distinction between belief and reality sometimes. And there might, I don't want to disparage anyone's beliefs there, but I think it's important to sort of be able to examine our assumptions and biases and beliefs.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer.
What did you think? Did you watch any of the Washington Cathedral conversation, and did you hear what Avi Loeb, when he mentioned God, maybe gods in the Bible being aliens? What did you think about?
Yeah. Did I lose you, Jane?
We lost you.
Jane, you froze her for a second.
Welcome back.
I think you knew what I was asking, though. But yeah.
Yeah. I guess, what did you think about the theology in it? So
totally, yeah. So that was an awesome experience for me, and for different reasons than maybe you might expect. So when I was a young person, I was probably in middle school. Actually, no, let me take that back. When I was in elementary school, I actually sang in that cathedral. So I was in a choir.
Humble brag.
But I say that because I'm trying to set the stage or paint a picture for everyone about what it's like being in that space. Yeah, it's an incredible space, and singing in it in particular is a very powerful experience, right? It's and cathedrals are designed this way. All right, so there's a reason why they build them tall and out of stone and grandiose with all of this amazing imagery, some of which is very abstract, and some of which is very realist. So it's what they're doing with the space itself is trying to induce a sense of otherness and induce a sense of connection to the great beyond, right? So when you enter into that room, this is what I found so cool about that experience at that conference or talk, is you have all of these folks who are not there for a worship service, right? But they're there sitting in the pews. They're entering into that space together. They are literally communing together in a way that is not a traditional way. You are, when you walk through the doors of that space, you are a congregant, essentially, whether you're there for worship or not. And so, there is a sense of reverence that is naturally imbued upon those who are there. And so to bring that subject onto that stage and have that kind of conversation, for me, and maybe I was alone in this, but the way they spoke about it, it's bringing a sense of reverence to the subject, and you could feel it, the way that they were talking about it, the conversations that they were having. Avril Haines, who's going up on that stage, in that position where normally the minister is at, sort of looking back at the congregation. So she's in a position that is sort of subject to the space itself. Like, the minister, while they are the focal point, they are also kind of like feeling the weight of the entire structure upon them when they are standing there by themselves. So she's a powerful person, right, who has all of these secrets and all of this knowledge, and she's sitting there under the weight of this experience, and that humbles you, and that sort of flattens you into an experience that all of us are sharing. It's less of a transaction. It's more, she's like literally a part of the experience, like everyone else is. So for me, and I'm kind of getting worked up about this, I apologize if it's too much, but it was a powerful thing. It was really cool to see, and I kind of wish we would do it more often. I think there's a reason, there's something that I think we feel connected to, when we can gather like that. And there aren't a lot of places in public life where you can do that in that way. You can go to a concert, or which is a close approximation to that. You can go to a sporting event, which is sort of another approximation, but with a different intent. You can go to a TED Talk, but it doesn't have quite the same air of uniqueness or special or reverence that space will induce.
Yeah. What sounds almost like, you left the church, but the spirituality or the concept of it didn't seem to leave you, and it feels like that's what draws you to this conversation, is the spirituality aspect of it.
Yeah, so interesting. I think that's a fair statement. This topic has actually brought spirituality back to me, but in a different way than I would have ever expected. So it has brought the sort of mystical, the unknown, the mysterious, sort of back front and center in my life, as opposed to before, a very scientific or atheist perspective. Everything is just, it's explainable. There's no mystery. We'll just figure it out eventually. And I've come to this place where I'm more comfortable with that being just part of how life is.
Yeah. And it sounds like, DJ, I know you have that that spirituality aspect to you as well, because of your yoga specifically. But I remember one of the conversations you brought me in on for your show, and I'm forgetting her name, but she was an experiencer.
Yes. Now I have to remember her name. She's a fellow yoga teacher, but forgive us for the moment, and I'll try to remember.
I'm sure it'll come to you in a second, but just the emotional rawness of that interview was really, really special, and how just open and honest she was with everything that she had been through, and also taking in the account that some of this maybe I made up in my own head, but who cares? Because look where I'm at now. My life is so much better because it literally took me out of the darkest corners of where humanity could even. I don't even know how she's alive in some of the dark corners that she sort of worked in for a long time. And so, I see how you guys connect. Is that sort of where a lot of you guys, both you and Nathan, find a lot of common ground?
Well, I think it's that we value people in the same way. So like when we interact with you, we want to leave you like Nathan and I talked about life goals. Like what's your mission in life? And I am like sort of a living contradiction to the Air Force and jiu-jitsu and special ops and yoga and swimming and blah blah blah, you know, it's all this crazy things. But to me, my mission in life is to make people smile. I feel like it's not necessarily what my job is, which by the way I love my job, but it's really to make people smile and make them feel welcome and loved. And Nathan has the exact same feeling about people. He sees the best in people, and I tend to do the same thing. There's some times when we've been hoodwinked a little bit, and Nathan will point that out to me. And there's some times when he's been hoodwinked a little bit, and I'll point it out to him. So we feed together in that way. But to stitch back to his earlier point, that was really interesting to stitch back to the last episode. Dr. Pazulka suggested that this religious aspect and ufology are inextricable in her opinion. And all you need to do is look at her book when this fella Tyler goes to the Vatican and has this overwhelming spiritual feeling. Now, although I'm a Jewish kid with an Italian Catholic father, when I went into Basilica San Pietro, St. Peter's Basilica, and if you guys have been there, you know what I'm talking about. When you walk in that place, you can't not feel the power, the awe of it. Now, it didn't make me have a religious transformation as it did with Tyler, but nonetheless, you can feel that aura. And I think I just wanted to buttress what Nathan said because I thought that was causal in some of the way that those participants interacted.
Yeah. Well, John Music with a $10 donation says, DJ and Nathan are very cool guys. They know what's up. Sincerely enjoyed my video panel discussion with them. We should definitely do more for sure. And then Robert McEwen with a $20 super sticker. Thank you guys so much for the donations. We truly appreciate it. What were you going to say, rather? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, yeah. I also see a lot of similarities between religion and ufology. But there is kind of one clear difference that I see, which is the issue of faith, right? Religion really proposes faith and encourages faith, and I almost have a problem with a lot of people seem to have faith in their proposed solution in ufology, but I kind of see that as almost a negative. I'm wondering how you, Nathan or DJ, you kind of handle that potential contradiction.
Yeah, I think we've got to lay bare the assumptions that we have about this topic. We have to be able to look at those and examine them and tell other people what they are, so because we do come at this with a lot of preconceptions, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in something that you feel a strong affinity for that may not really be true. So what I try to do for my own self is just hold things in suspension. I think rather, I feel like I take a similar view to that you do. There's a lot of possibility that is out there, but until we know, we don't know, right? So, for me, it's fun to explore these kind of speculative ideas and landscapes. Like I actually really enjoy that, and it's very energizing to get into those different theories. But I think at the same time, I'm not, unless I know for sure, I can't say, yeah, like that's how it is. So, but this is an interesting topic, right? Because you have those who arguably may have more fact, right? Because they are studying it on inside a special access program or something. And then you have those that have had an experience, an experience that is not in the special access program. They've had an experience, a very personal one with the phenomenon, and we all know kind of how many different forms that can take. And so, I struggle with that. I struggle with on the ranking of value. How do I value the SAP experience that I know basically zero about, other than through sort of conjecture or whatever, and then the individual experience that we often hear a lot about, a lot of the varied individual experiences from experiencers. So how do you, and I'll throw it back to you rather, how do you kind of evaluate those different kinds of beliefs or types of truth there?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like I feel like no one really has the answer, and I mean I kind of feel like that's the same in ufology and religion, right? And it kind of seems like two sides of the same coin. And religion, is more of a you know how you sleep at night and what the stories you want to tell to make yourself sleep at night and
Sure.
be okay with yourself. Whereas ufology, I do feel like you do kind of need that openness to consider all of the possibilities and not kind of zero into a specific solution that you find personally appealing. So yeah, I think it's a hard line to balance. But
It's tough, and I think about this too in the context of, okay, let's say that an alien or whatever, insert your pet theory, appears and they introduce themselves to you. I know you're going to have questions, right? And if you don't have more questions after the first answers come, then we have a problem. So there will be more and more questions. This is how our academic knowledge grows, right? So I like that illustration of like the circle, where we're kind of like pushing the boundary of the circle and it gets a little bit bigger. That's how academic knowledge grows. And the same should be true for whatever we find the phenomenon to be. There will not come a day where the questions will stop. And if that day arrives, then you're probably dead. So, I think we should always be in search of answers. We should take on the character of adventurers. We should be forever curious. I think that's the highest quality of our sort of human consciousness, is our sort of curiosity and willingness to explore.
Yeah, no, it raises the point. Is there anything that could happen that would make you satisfied with everything's explained? And yeah, I can't think of anything that would satisfy me.
That actually sounds terrible, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the search is fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey guys, the rest of the cabbies are here at a study of UAPs. Akashi Chris and Greer Flair would like to say hello to you guys. Can that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. That
Can I get an amen?
Jesus.
And then I'll answer Rather's question. Akashi Chris, and everybody go. That's how we say Akashi Chris. Deb and Greer's Flair. Woo!
Okay.
Oh, game.
DJ is officially. This has become the DJ San Marcos show. Okay, so all right. I don't want this to turn into too many ads.
I just want you to meet you.
But I want to say hello to you guys,
Please,
because I do love all three of you guys. So first, of course, ladies, Akashi Chris.
Yay!
How you doing, my lady?
And I brought my merch.
That's awesome. I love it.
Anyway, we're just happy to be here. We're sorry. We didn't mean to throw you guys off. We're just
I
this is how
did.
we roll. This is how we roll.
This is the calling all beings infiltration. I told you there was going to be a surprise, and the cabbies wanted to meet you and just say hello, and then you can kick them off stage. And tomorrow we got a whole show with them and TJ Allard, so we're going to be all right.
That's going to be great. Okay. So real quick, I wanted to just address this and say hi to Felipe from ICER and Exo Realidades. Either you are a religious or non-religious person, you always feel something special in some sacred places due to the so-called sacred architecture. I agree with that. I mean, obviously these temples, these churches, these places of worship, sometimes they're built on sacred ground. Most of the times I feel like they're not, especially here in the United States. They're like, where can they fit? But there is something I could say. I mean, like when I go to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, especially if it's a stone structure, and there's a lot of thought. Like I've been to churches where they've got the church band, and they built this basically a Costco warehouse for a church, and there's no sacredness to it. It doesn't feel like a church. Or like a traditional, stone and marble statues with the windows and all that stuff. But there is something to be said about a sacred architecture. I'm curious to know what you think about that, Jade, since I haven't heard from you here in a hot second.
Oh yeah. I love. So I've kind of had a different experience than Nathan, where I grew up. My not hearing about religion at all. My mother was an atheist. My dad didn't talk about it, and then my mother later, like I guess, found the religion, but still had some hesitancy about certain things. And so I don't go to church every week or anything like that, but I love being in a church. But also I went in college. I went to So I went to UT Austin, very secular, and then but I first went to Baylor, which is in Waco, Texas here, which is super conservative Baptist. Yeah. And so I went a super hard anti-religion, borderline like angry atheist phase. I went through like every and I think it was so good. Like just what you were saying, Nathan, I think it was so good to see all those perspectives. And I continue to go through different phases or ways of thinking. But for me, having gone through all of this at this point, I love being in a church, and I think it's also the energy of the people too, and the intention of the people, and it's not that different than if you're at a concert, right? And everybody's seeing their favorite band or musician perform. So I have good energy. My son goes to a Christian school. I think it's pretty cool and open-minded one, It's not super strict, but I have good vibes about all that.
Yeah, no rulers on the knuckles.
It's complicated.
Luis, get back to your desk.
Oh yeah, I did. I attended a Catholic private school when I was young, and I got kicked out of it. And it was the kind of school. It's one of the last schools in Florida that actually was allowed to.
Oh my gosh.
Kids. Like I remember I would go into the principal's office quite often, and this was first grade. Like I wasn't like a crazy troublemaker. But he had this paddle, and then the paddle had holes drilled in it. And then he would spank you and then make you pray. It was so weird.
That's so warped.
So strange. Yeah,
So many people have the nun stories, the scary nun stories, and I don't know how that wouldn't just F with you, just mess with you.
Well, here I am hosting a UFO show.
Yeah!
So there you go.
He's the offensive lineman who's not offensive as a person.
There you go. Zofa with a £5 donation. There's at least one faction of non-humans that wants us to be religious, though they don't seem to mind which religion. I'm not going to say no to that. It's possible. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, I can see how that is a possibility. And speaking of possibilities, I mean, here we look at this guy right here.
Yeah.
Stephen Greenstreet's Flair. Greer's Flair. One of the best supporters of this show. I mean, the deep fakes that you guys put out and all of the little cartoons that you make are hilarious, man. Thank you for being here.
Sure. I love being here. I love your show, man. Been a fan for a long time.
It. No, I know you. I know you have been. I'm glad that we got you on. DJ brought the whole crew.
It's a party.
I wanted him to meet you. Well, plus we want to surprise you. We want to infiltrate. That's true. But also these guys want to meet you. And Deb, at a study of UAPs. I don't think you're familiar with Deb. She's a phenomenal researcher. Think John Greenwald, Sean Rash. Is that his name? The gentleman that you had on yesterday. Was it yesterday?
No, I had him on last week. Or
last week. Yeah, that we're doing his event. So this is Deb. Hi, Deb. Deb.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to point out, Flair made this. This is
your picture.
Looking good.
I love it.
It's nice to meet everybody. I am, of course, on Twitter, and I am one of those FOIA people.
Oh, nice.
Oh, excellent. Well, let me ask you this. What's the last thing you FOIA'd?
I actually find the documents that have already been released that people may not be aware of, and I bring them out and I summarize them for people as much as I can. And some of them are not on government sites.
All right. Where do you post these?
They're on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, tell us where we can find that.
Study of UAPs, UFOs, Research and Science.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. I don't even know where to go right now. This is a huge panel right now.
I want to answer Rather's question.
Yeah, answer Rather's question.
So what you were saying, you were talking about faith and the issue with faith and how. So I would just say about that is that for me personally, I try to find an area inside ufology that has some knowns, and there are very few. And then I will try to build out from there and just open my aperture to all this information that I'm getting from all of you. And when I say you, I mean you on this show, you on hashtag UFO Twitter, and open my mind about a lot of things. So that's what I try to do. However, I try to open space. In yoga, we talk in terms of opening space for someone who's different than you, because everybody's body in yoga is different. You're not going to be able to do those. You know, believe it or not, Luis's Warrior One is not going to look the same as Jane's. Just taking a guess. So we try to open. I look in terms of opening space for someone to have a different idea. Rather, that's what I would say about it. So some people have a belief, and while I may not share that belief, I like to open space, and I also like to try to take a look at a couple of the knowns that we do have.
So Akashi,
very few.
Akashi, I'd like to ask you sort of the similar question that I asked Nathan. Are you coming at this from an experiencer aspect, or are you coming at this from a curiosity aspect?
It started with curiosity. I'm not an experiencer, but I don't need that physical evidence of me having seen it to see enough around me and read enough about it to know that there's something there. So that's kind of the angle that I came at it. And I go by Akashi Chris because I'm really interested in, I know DJ's like, she's going to say it again, Akashic Records.
Yeah!
So, you know, which is where I'm like dying to talk to Rather about quantum entanglement. And, you know, is there some kind of, you know, a scientific explanation behind the access to Akashic Records and that network that's sitting underneath all this. The puzzle is so huge, and we can't just eliminate pieces. We got to just start putting pieces together in order to have that puzzle complete at the end. And that's kind of the angle. I'm hunting for answers, and I want to support you guys as much as possible. So.
Well, we appreciate the support, and I know you do give us a lot of it, not only through all of your likes, tweets, shares, and nice comments, but you also throw dollars our way. So I can't appreciate you more than that. But
no
you
Uber
have
for Lou. No more Uber for Lou.
No. We got. I've drove Uber. Nah, man, we're
it's
good.
The worst. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got Rather here. What would be a question you'd ask him since you got him here?
Okay, now I'm going to turn into that Cindy Green syndrome. It's like, so Rather, having your background and everything, you know, I've been starting to watch all your videos, which I absolutely love. I think one of the last ones addressed this, which was, you know, how feasible, where in the Rather scale, there we go. Where in the Rather scale is the Akashic field for you?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not that familiar with the Akashi field. I need to research that more. But you know, essentially, you're kind of like the astral plane kind of stuff. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, and yes, go ahead. That's basically it.
Yeah, you know, I think that there's a good possibility that there is some sort of plane, some sort of dimension that we can't, you know, physically or, you know, consciously access. You know, in my recent video, I did touched on, you know, we might all be fourth dimensional beings. They've been doing research on our brains and showing that the brain patterns suggest that the activity there is actually going into another dimension, leaping into another dimension. And so potentially there, you know, part of our brains could literally be in another dimension, and we might all be linked in that weird, different plane. And there's not just that study that kind of suggests that as well. There's some really cool research by Matthew Fisher, who's a physicist who is talking about the quantum nature of our brains and how, you know, we know that we can smell things that have quantum effects based on their nuclear spin. If the same substance, if it's a different isotope, it will smell differently, which most biologists would say that's impossible, but it's a fact, right? Yeah. And there's this really interesting theory about how there's entangled networks of potassium ions in our bones that influences our minds. And I'm really trying to pull that thread, because if that's true, that could literally mean that, yeah, we are all quantumly entangled, and that what happens in us, or me, might affect what's happening in you based on quantum entanglement. So it's
like the plants that how they're talking through the root systems, right?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
botany, right.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you
yeah.
so
We
much. That video on the fourth dimension, awesome. But I watched it like at 4:45 in the morning.
When I woke her up.
And then I start like DMing with DJ. But yeah, I think there's something to this. So I'm gonna just keep up with you. And I'll
definitely
you guys
keep
have
up.
your
Yeah,
show
please
back
do.
when we
Cool.
completely attacked.
I'll live through you vicariously.
Yeah, Kevin.
You can tell me all about it.
Same question for you. I mean, are you coming at this from an experiencer aspect or from a curiosity aspect?
Oh, I've seen dolphins before.
My spirit animal.
Nice.
Aquarium, Yeah, SeaWorld, stuff like that. Yep. they're
Right,
dolphins,
so you see the dolphins, so that's it. You're convinced.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I'm good. The dolphins.
Okay.
Jazz is like yes.
I'm just here for the laugh, man. All the stuff I do on Twitter, I'm just gonna bring live. So, yeah. That's why I'm here.
I can't wait to see the live version of your Twitter feed. That's going to be pretty wild. Deb, right? This is Deb.
Yes,
sir.
that's me.
So Deb, same question for you. Are you what is your interest aspect in this? Is it from an experiencer standpoint, or is it from a curiosity standpoint?
That's a complicated question, but I can tell you the two people that I've answered that to are John Ramirez and DJ.
Okay.
Namaste, Deb. Love you.
So it sounds
I
a little
will
bit
tell
like
you
a experiencer aspect. A little
Yes.
bit, if I had to take a guess.
Yes, I will tell you that my bigger drive is just getting truth to everybody and validating a whole lot of people. And as you research this, you hear their stories, all these people that worked so hard for things that happened like today. And I value them, and I value those memories, and I really want everyone to get that validation.
Right. What do you think is? I mean, do you think people will be getting that validation anytime soon?
I think we're making steps in that direction. I think it'd be really hard to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, at this point.
No, that makes sense. Well, all right. Well, does anybody have any other questions for either Rather or the crew, or?
Oh, I do, but I'm gonna wait till we have them on again after we have you, Luis. We gotta get you up in there, man.
Well,
On our
yeah,
own
anytime.
ground.
Yeah, anytime. I would be
I
more
would
than
love
happy
it,
to come.
man.
Yeah.
We're gonna you be ready to bring the beer, man.
Bottled Water says, "Hey, just wants to give a shout out to
Yay!
everybody." Says hello.
What's up,
$5
Bottled
for
Water?
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My U.S. Army brother.
That was
Yes,
the most
indeed.
expensive high ever. Okay.
Yeah, Bottled Water. It was funny. He was, I guess he was watching a show, and Jazz took a $50 shot, and so Bottled Water bought him a $50 shot. Then the next day, he's like, "I woke up and found out that I bought a $50 shot for Jazz Shaw in UCR, and I've never. That's the most expensive shot I've ever paid for." I was like, "Yep, don't drink and drive, and don't drink in UCR. Those are the, I guess, the rules
First to
now
live
when
life.
it comes to the show." But okay, let's do this. So, Deb, is there any closing thoughts that you have that you'd like to leave the people with, and also remind again where they can find these FOIA requests?
Right. So the documents, I've been posting them as I've been finding them. I recommend strongly that people on Twitter use a search feature for anything they're interested in. You can go to someone's page, hit the search button, find what you want. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I am now also a C.A.B.
Yeah.
So
She's
I'll
our
be around.
researcher.
I've also done some talk spaces, but I just wanted to say hello to everyone, and UCR is awesome. You guys are rocking it, and it was nice to be here.
I appreciate it, my lady.
Thank you, Deb.
I'm looking at your work right now, and guys, I'm gonna take the Facebook link here and put it in the chat so you guys can go check out Deb's work. All right, Deb. Well, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being a fan of the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
You too.
Love you, Deb.
Bye.
Love you, Deb.
Hi, Deb.
Stephen Greer, Flair, Kevin. Steven's
weird.
Flair, Kevin. Yeah,
Cool.
What do you want to go by, Flair?
Dude, whatever you want to call me, I don't care.
Come on, you got to care.
Okay.
Come on, don't be too non-confrontational. Give me an answer on something.
You know, I'm too early in this live thing yet. But sure, call me Greer, Flair. Flair's fine. Everyone calls me Flair. That's cool.
Call me Greer, Flair. Flair's fine. Everybody calls me Flair. Okay, all right.
Everyone calls me Kevin, you know.
When is this channel coming out? Do you have any idea on when that might be popping?
What channel?
Yours.
You said you were going to do a live channel, right?
Oh yeah,
Hello, I'm talking to you,
that's a
Bill.
work in progress. No, right now I want to put all my energy into C.A.B. So
okay,
yeah.
right on.
Thank you so much. Love you, Kev.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't wait to see the work that you do there. So, dude, thanks for stopping by again. Thanks for being a fan and being so damn funny. I always appreciate. I thought for a hot second there, I was like, wait a second, is Flair actually mad at me? No, he's just messing around.
No,
he's just messing around.
Hey, I just want to say, Luis, his title on the show is humorous antagonist. So that should give you, when you hear the question like he asked James, you would laugh your ass off. When you hear what he asked Josh from Primetime, when you hear what he's going to ask TJ tomorrow night, you can laugh your ass off.
With a straight face.
Well, I would put that on your Twitter profile. What was it? How did you describe
humorous antagonist?
A humorous antagonist, a professional humorous antagonist. Yeah, I think that should be your description. All right, my man. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Yep.
Peace. All right, who we got now?
Akashi,
my lady, Akashi Chris. You're the best for last. Thank you for being here, my love. Thank you for being such a great fan and always a part of our shows. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that DJ brought you guys in. That was a really cool little treat. But if you're now a cabbie as well?
Yes, I am associate producer, baby.
Woo! Can I get a hey?
So,
DJ?
I basically. And rather you'll crack up at this one. I was like, am I achieving like brain linkage with DJ?
Rather,
because I don't need to get up at 4:45, but he gets up at 4:45, and now I'm like, I'm up at 4:45, and I'm on Twitter and I'm watching videos, and I'm like, brain linkage. There we go, Akashi.
That's it.
All making
That's
sense.
it.
I love it.
Anyway,
Akashi.
a blessing.
I just want to say one thing. Let's stay united, guys. We have a group of people, we have a community of people that's rare because we believe in something. You know, a lot of people just don't even think that something's there. So we just need to focus on those things that bring us together and hopefully get over the things that don't, because we can be so great. So, and I love you guys.
Love you.
Fangirling out.
I love you, Chris.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Talk to
being
you
here.
tomorrow.
Bye.
We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao. All right, DJ, you're hilarious.
Luis, what's the number one leadership principle? Put together a team of people that is smarter than you are, and that's what I did.
Yeah, no, that's what I did too, and it's working out nicely for me as well. Okay, we've got about 7 minutes into our special guest gets here. And by the way, that's going to be UFO Jesus Ryan Robbins, just in case anybody was curious.
Man.
It's going to be really, really cool. He's going to come by at 5 o'clock. But let's talk about real quick. I know he has something to talk about. The movement yesterday with Congress. We got our bill that's passed the floor, and now it's going to the Senate. And it seems like we're at least getting the Gallego, I guess, version, the amped up Gallego version of things. So, so let's get your thoughts on that, DJ.
I took a few notes, so overall, I'm really, really happy because that really the way to look at this is the gravity of where we were to where we are now. Is that this is incredible that we're talking about this in Congress. Legislation has passed, and people can have a straight face and have this conversation in both chambers of Congress. Is because at some point you might have said, oh, well, the House, I mean, they're a little bit sophomoric over there. We're the saucer that cools the milk. And the Senate, well, both chambers have had this conversation. So I'm really ecstatic. I did highlight a couple of areas where I would expect to see some very key words in any government guidance or documentation, which are the words will and shall. So if you go through this legislation and you count, and I might even have to put my glasses on for this, so I'll dispense with this. You can see my beady little eyes.
And, like a Canadian on South Park almost.
Again, you get a good-looking cast when you look like you have a face for radio. So there's a couple of areas I highlighted where I was expecting to see will and shall. Coordinating with allies and partners, the United States is appropriate to better stress the nature and extent of unidentified aerial phenomena. That is under Part 7 of Section B. Okay. It doesn't say will or shall. So that doesn't mean it's mandatory. So there, overall, I'm absolutely ecstatic that this happened. It's life-changing for us as people that are interested in transparency, and you guys are at the absolute front line of that movement, okay, along with Sean and some others. But there are a few areas in here where I wanted to see will and shall, where it's more implied as may. Right. And so I'll just cool off this cup of tea a little bit.
Yeah.
But extremely happy.
There was another term too. I noticed that too. There was a lot of that. And then there was another term, I think it changed from require to ensure. So,
yes.
Just like a bit of a softer.
Yes, ma'am. That's great because will and shall, you cannot extract yourself from that. You will, you shall. When they write guidance for us flying, they will say something like, you will adhere to this, you shall. And other areas to say you may or perhaps, there's this sort of wishy-washy words. But will and shall, I would like to see it in a couple areas. But overall, you can't let that spoil this dish.
Yeah, it seems like they've taken a couple of teeth out of the crocodile's mouth, but it's still a crocodile. So
there's a Florida analogy. That shows you guys he's from Miami.
There you go. Haley Bassbrook with a $5 donation. DJ, I love your vibe so damn much. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Haley. Namaste. Thank you. You are so funny, dude. You go from clapping full rage,
and Haley wanted the music turned down, right?
Yeah, and Haley wanted the music turned down.
I was gonna pay $10 for him to turn it back on. Love you though, Haley.
So Nathan, your thoughts, man? What did you think about yesterday's passing of the bill?
Yeah, there's a lot of great content in there, and for someone like myself who's worked within a field that is based on the law, I can tell you that these things have a significant effect and downstream effects that you can't necessarily anticipate. So. The way in which a legislation will kind of work its way into these different agencies and their interpretation of the legislation, because I think that's something that's often maybe misconstrued, is that when you have different agencies who are tasked with sort of a mission or whatever, they can bring to bear on that mission a little bit of a different flavor based on their reading, if you will, of the legislation itself. And so it will be interesting to see, I think, what they kind of put together. I know there's a lot of language in here about coordinating, about compiling things and presenting this from a variety of different groups. Shout out to Tim McMillan's article today about how the serious challenges that poses for a government that is so sprawling. At the same time, what I saw here a little bit between the lines, every time I see anything related to UAP and the phenomenon, I see like the picture of Chris Mellon behind the words. So Chris Mellon, as you know, is an expert, in this area, and his DNA, his fingerprints, I think, are on a lot of this language. And what we can see here is that there are doors that will be opened to those who know where to look. And if you have Chris Mellon and you have Elizondo who have already been in communication with some of these lawmakers, and they are getting wind of some of these unclassified or classified reports, and those reports don't contain information pointing to programs that Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo know exist. The language here basically says that's not okay. And so that they can kind of direct the gaze of Congress to those areas, and they have the weight of this legislation to support it. So, to me, that's very exciting. I'm also sort of excited by the fact that you're just going to have more eyes on this than you've had before. Yeah. All right. So you've got a lot of folks on a lot of committees and all of their staff. And there's a huge apparatus that's going to get connected to these reports. And to me, the more eyeballs on this, the harder it is to put that back inside the box, so that there are going to be more questions, going to be more avenues of pursuit. I would love to know what John Greenwald is already, cooking up right now in terms of things he might ask for future FOIA requests around this.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he's going to have at least 2 offices to do some FOIA requests to, so that's good. Jane, you did some excellent work, and I was hoping you would come on yesterday, but I'm glad you're here today. Pointing out the differences in the verbiage between the bills was really helpful. But we've also, we've got a Senate bill still to be voted on, so we can get that version of the bill that's got even more teeth to it.
That's true.
So we're still not out of the woods yet. We can still get more. I mean, we've gotten, this is an early Christmas, as Rather explained. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on on what you thought about it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that it's passed the House. I feel optimistic that it's going to go through the Senate. I think when we were originally talking about it before it went through the House, we all felt optimistic with it then, and I feel even more optimistic now. Right. So I think that it's really good news, and I hope that it quiets down, at least for now. I know it won't last forever. Some of the debate or anxiety between the named office, or the office we shall not name, and the to be determined office. So yeah, I'm generally excited about it. Just like DJ was saying, a lot of people have been saying really that, or you said it best with the crocodile or the alligator, whichever one. The DOD memos the crocodile, this one's the alligator, or I don't know. No, the DOD's like the tadpole. But nothing, it's still a really sturdy amendment. Mostly everything is in it. There were a lot of nuances and stuff that have some implications, but the biggest thing, of course, was just the Transmedium UFO committee that getting ditched. But that doesn't really bother me, because I actually thought that brought some controversy to it, because Christopher Mellon, may have ghost written this, and Galileo Project was, was appointed for that. So I didn't have a problem really with any of the changes. So it's exciting, and what a fun show to have DJ Nathan of all days. Yeah, no, for sure. for such a celebratory day. Yeah. So there was gotta wait for Senate though, but
no, we just and I think it's gonna happen soon, and this is something that D.D. Johnson wrote in his article. I read the underwritten message underlying the bill language as something like this: we, the Congress, have concluded that unidentified aerial phenomenon are a serious business. We want you to start treating it as a serious business. Get your act together and get a grip on this problem. Expect to be held accountable. Rather, your thoughts?
I love it. The main 2 things that I think are great is that we're getting field investigations and we're getting public reports. So, we're going to be able to keep them accountable, like you said. And I'm Nathan, you mentioned downstream effects. I think that there's going to be a lot of those governmental downstream effects, but there's also going to be a lot of non-governmental downstream effects. Like, I'm waiting for the TV shows that are going to have investigators from these agencies appear on their shows, and it's definitely going to decrease the stigma and just the media in general. I think it's going to be a wild couple of years we're going to see.
Do you think we could see these aspects that were dropped from the congressional versions end up in the Senate version of the bill? Is that possible? Like the transmedium aspect of it, the Galileo aspect of it. What do you think?
There are a lot of hints of that, right? Like there's a science plan, but it doesn't name Galileo. And I think that, Jade, you were saying that there's a transmedium is mentioned there, but there's no office yet.
Right.
And I'm no government expert, but I think what happened is that they reconciled between the House and the Senate, and the House has voted on the reconciled language. So now that goes back to the Senate. So my guess is that they're not going to change the verbiage. So they're just going to vote, yes, we agree with the House, or no, we don't. And I think people are assuming that they're going to vote yes, and it's going to go ahead and get passed. But
and it's going to pass as a verb. It's going to pass as the verbiage in the House version of the bill.
That's what I expect.
That's what is. That's okay. That seems to make sense. Okay, so we've got a special guest that's in the wings right now who hasn't been on the show in a little while, and it looks like he might have gotten a haircut. I don't know. We'll ask him, but without further ado, let's clear the runway, as they say, for the one, the only, Mr. Ryan Robbins, aka UFO Jesus, aka Post Disclosure World. I tweeted at him yesterday, and I said, I just want to see your face the day after this bill. Bill gets signed, because I wanted to see a smile, because I knew we were going to get one from you, and I'm glad that we've already got one here in the first minute. But dude, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? I know we want to get to some comments on some things that Chris Cogswell said yesterday, and you wanted to rebuttal that, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to get your feelings on the day's events yesterday.
I think it's extremely historical. Douglas Johnson spelled it out in his article that there has never been explicit language like this referencing UFO ever before in a proposal within Congress, and he juxtaposed it with ALSAP, but with ALSAP, almost nobody in the United States Congress knew about it. Only a select few. Wasn't public. We weren't talking about it. So this is unprecedented, and I think this kind of puts the nail in the coffin for people to say, countering when people say, "Oh, nothing's changed. This is just a recycling of the past." Well, no, it's not a recycling of the past. This is a glaring escalation well beyond anything that's ever taken place in the past. And finally, some oversight from our congressional committee, something that should have been done decades ago, and it's mind-boggling it was never done before. And I really don't understand skeptics at this point. I mean, it's been 4 years now, and let me put this, let me not do a blanket statement. Some skeptics, not all skeptics, just don't seem as objective to me as they're convinced themselves that they are, because
that's a fact.
To be so sure, which a lot of them are, and if you ask them personally, you'll be like, nah, I don't know. Okay, fine, you say you don't know, but when I look at your Twitter account, everything you're expressing is I know. So you're not contradicting yourself. Right. But either way, it's like after 4 years of this this escalation, it has not let up. Literally, right. You would think that if there was nothing to this, it would implode at some point, right? There's no way. Well,
I mean, there is a monicum of public discourse and want for this, but it's, for me, it's nowhere near enough to actually change things. And the fact that the DOD hasn't squashed this, the Senate hasn't squashed this, the Congress hasn't squashed this. Like you just said, it's been a 4-year buildup into what looks like now is going to be on the president's desk and signed into law. How can you look at this and say that this is the same as Project Blue Book? This is the same as Project Condon, or even OSAP, or even OSAP. Like, I mean, people, like, it's funny because the article did take a little bit of a swipe at OSAP in that it was a really small program that had almost no oversight. And when it was found out about, it was basically shut down. And Christopher Mellon even tweeted something in the same vein, like, this is not OSAP, this is different. And so I'm curious to know, am I right on that? Or are we right on? I don't want to say me. I mean, like, do you think that's a fair statement?
Oh, I think Mellon just was juxtaposing what's happening now versus OSAP. I don't think he was belittling OSAP. I think he was just underscoring that OSAP was an extremely secretive program.
Right.
It wasn't being debated about in the Congress. They weren't. It was just. It was Inouye, it was Ted Stevens, and it was Harry Reid, and with a little bit of input from John Glenn, and like who else in the Congress knew about it? And now we have, and it was funded. But I know Jazz Shaw was on your show a little bit ago, and he said he thinks that this is going to be highly funded.
Yeah,
now, that's a big difference. If this gets like hundreds of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a big difference between OSAP and what may unfold pretty soon.
Well, he threw the B word around. I was thinking hundreds of millions. He said maybe $1 billion. Don't be shocked. I mean, and it wouldn't be $1 billion per year. It would be over a course of time. But that's still
it depends on
infinitely more.
It depends on what they need to do with that, what that money's required for. So, when you go into a POM, a program of memorandum, which is basically telling the government, I want money for my program. And you compete at like if you're the CIA, you compete at the CIA level, then you go up to Congress, the congressional level, or if it's Department of the Air Force, Department of the Navy. But what are your requirements? You have to prove to them why you need this money. To bring people in and interview them? Are you fielding sensors, or are you just using the sensors that are on all these different ships? Now, if that's the case, then you're not having to fund those activities that are bringing you the data. Are you going out buying satellites? Well, they already have satellites. They already have geospatial assets that, Ramirez tells you he's not going to be specific, but have an extreme level of fidelity. So that's what that's all about. And secondly, the name of it, I would present this to everybody. If I told you my name was CJ, would that change anything about how you feel about me, Luis?
No.
You would just think, what kind of a person are you, right?
Yeah.
So if it's right.
Well, I would know who you are if you just changed your name.
Right, but if my name was CJ, it wouldn't change me as a person or BJ. So OSAP and ATIP, who cares what the name of it is? What did you do? What kind of data did you get? What's included? What sources and methods did you use? And what kind of evidence did you bring back? I don't care if it's ATIP, OSAP. It's so immaterial. It really doesn't matter, to be honest with you. I don't care what they call it.
What were you going to say, rather?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we have OSAP to thank for all of that's happened, right? Regardless of what you think about what happened at Skinwalker Ranch and all that, right. They're the agency that broke the Nimitz story. And without them and without that program, we wouldn't get where we are here. So
no, that's a very good point. And Jazz chimed in. He's hearing $2.3 billion for this office. I mean, that's a legitimate permanent office.
It's big money.
Well, yeah, and if you look at the science plan where they're trying to reverse engineer these advanced things that are having characteristics that we can't explain, I think you can probably spend $1 billion trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So Ryan, what okay, so we were talking about some skeptics, and we were having a discussion yesterday about if let's just say for hell's sake that it is a $2.3 billion budget. Let's say it's a 7-year outline budget or something along those lines. I probably won't be 7 year, it'll probably be more like 4 years or 2 years, depending on the voting cycle. But if at the end of this $2.3 billion budget, the government comes back to us and says, yeah, we looked into this, and there's not what we thought there was here. What do we do as a community then? Do we accept the conclusion that they come up with, or do we continue, or do we turn face on the government and say, oh, you didn't? Now do we start calling them liars again? Because there is a little bit of a game we're playing here. Like, I don't trust the government as far as I can throw it. I mean, I don't know about anybody else here, but here we are. We're supposed to be trusting our government on the answers that we want most. In my opinion, we don't have a choice. This is just kind of the seat that we're sitting in. This is what's been given to us. But how do you think the community will react if after $2.3 billion, they come back to us and they say, nah, nothing to see here, or it's a phenomenon that could be explained, or it's U.S. tech, or it's something human made. What do you think would be the reaction of the community if that was worst case scenario?
Well, first of all, I would say if 10 years from now, nothing escalated and they implement this new office and they say, you know, there was a lot of rhetoric with people in the Navy and Luis Elizondo and others, and it was interesting, but guess what? The data just doesn't support what they said. What I would say is, number one, skeptics are going to have an excellent argument. An argument that I'm going to explicitly say is an excellent argument, regardless of whether the government's lying. Because I do not assess that whoever is insulating all this data has magical powers. I don't believe that. So if it continues after, let's say, 10 years or whatever, 5 years, 7 years, and they come back and say there's nothing there, then I think it's going to be a little crazy if people are like, oh, the governments must be lying. I don't know what my assessment would be, but regardless of what my assessment would be, I would be absolutely 1000% staunch that the skeptics have a superb argument that after all of this and they say there's nothing there, maybe there's nothing there. That's a good argument. And if I was a skeptic, I would repeat that as many times as I could. My whole Twitter feed would just be that.
Right.
But what I want to get into is a little bit of history of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And with the close of Project Blue Book, I have it all prepared, sort of. With the close of Project Blue Book, they put out a fact sheet in 1969 that they used when asked about UFOs. It states that the U.S. government will no longer be investigating unidentified flying objects for the following reasons. No UFO reported, investigated, and evaluated by the Air Force has ever given it any indication of threat to our national security. There has been no evidence submitted to or discovered by the Air Force that sightings categorized as unidentified represent technological developments or principles beyond the range of present-day scientific knowledge. There has been no evidence indicating the sightings categorized as unidentified or extraterrestrial vehicles. And then in 2011, a petition came out asking the White House about the proposition that extraterrestrials are engaging us. And a representative from the Office of Science and Technology responded to that petition and said, the U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. Phil Larson from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy reported. In addition, there's no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public eye. Now, the first thing I want to say is when this happened, it was reported by multiple big news outlets. Now, what does that demonstrate? That demonstrates that our news agencies listen to what the government says. They listen and they report on it. Right. And so my argument is that if it's really true that the U.S. government has no impressive data establishing that some UAP are truly weird and demonstrate beyond next generation technological maneuvers, then why have they not done the simple things that they explicitly done in 1969 and in 2011? Why would they allow this to explode to this level, to the point where even the Congress is about to, as Jazz saw, maybe put $2.3 billion into a UFO program? It makes no sense.
Right.
And I look at the data, I look at the evidence. Yes, it is evidence. I'm sorry, it's evidence. You can argue that witness testimony is not valuable, and that's true. But when you have thousands of people over decades giving the same description of phenomena and many, many corroborated events, you have the Nimitz event, which, by the way, I need to underscore this. This is unbelievable. This does not get enough emphasis. When you look at the Nimitz event, every single person that was there, as far as I can tell, if I'm wrong, please point it out to me. I love being wrong, because if I'm wrong, then I know I'm wrong. But every single person from the Nimitz events, whether it's Gary Voorhees, PJ Hughes, Chad Underwood, David Fravor, whoever else, there's a bunch of them. They're all consistent on one thing. Whatever was encountered that day is not only technology of unknown origin, but it surpasses the capabilities of all known technology. Now, you asking me to believe that there's not one skeptic among that group, there's not one clear-headed person among that group, all of them Top Gun graduate radar operators and Kevin Day. Top Gun graduate aviators and Dave Fravor. Alex.
Hey, man!
None of them have a clear head. None of them have a skeptical tendency. Here's my rebuttal to some skeptics who I peacefully and respectfully disagree with. You can't be so certain on your position. Not when you have these decades of evidence. Not when, let me put it this way: if even one witness from the Nimitz event would have come forward and say, you know what, I don't agree with anyone here. Here's what the technology probably was. Do you think Mick West would not have had a field day with that? Oh, please.
Hey, Sean Fravor's a skeptic.
He would have ran with that like it was the best thing he's ever come across. You could not rip the smile off his face if he would have come across just one witness to say that. And so for me, it's like, look, what I think's happening, and I think it's obvious. Oh, I think it's obvious, which pains me. It pains me because I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe it's not that obvious. Maybe other people are just smarter than me, and I'm just a lunatic. And look, that's possible. But the last thing I wanted to say is that with the Gillibrand language, it's the Gillibrand Rubio language. It's asking for are there current efforts underway to exploit or whatever with captured UAP. So that's interesting language. So if there are classified UFO programs, I think they have to come to the surface, because they're asking for data that would percolate within a secret UFO program. If you're asking if there's already efforts underway to back engineer UFOs, where would that be? That would be within the confines of a UFO program that hasn't surfaced yet. So if after 7 years, and they put all of this together, and with the claims that Luis Elizondo has made, that his emails have been deleted, and then there's the IG investigation, he has a lawyer involved in that, and this just all just sort of evaporates, right? And there's no further data brought to the table. You kind of get this unison assessment by the Congress. It's like, oh no, you see, that was a fun time, right? Those 4 years were fun, but after adequate investigation, it's just Chinese drones, Russian drones. I think the skeptics will have an absolutely superb argument, and I will support them on that argument. I will say, you know what? I'm not sure what I believe, but the skeptics are 1,000% justified to rub it in every UFO believer's face that they came up with nothing. And by the way, if it ends up occurring that I was wrong, and now I want to preface this, I am not 100% certain that some UFOs represent non-human technology. I am over 50%, and I acknowledge my fallibility in my analysis. But the point is that if that happens, great. Because if I'm wrong, that means I've come to the truth. I want to be wrong. I want the government to tell me I'm wrong. I don't want to have this false sense of security. But unfortunately or fortunately, over the past 4 years, the behavior of the U.S. government has given me a YouTube channel, and they facilitate me making what I think are pretty good arguments from time to time, that they're not telling us the whole truth. And that the only reason this is happening like it is not because there's a mind virus, as Jason Colavito will try to tell you, but because there's a ground truth underneath this all. And that some UFOs simply do not have an explanation consistent with our current understanding of science. And I'm done. That's all I wanted to say.
Amen. Nathan, give a witness, Nathan. Put those hands up for UFO Jesus. Amen.
I love it.
Yes.
No, I think that was you make a lot of great points there. I'm curious to know because Rathers our Mick West defender here. But I mean, do you find any false spots in his argument with what he's saying here? Like, what do we? Okay, I guess it's kind of like when you evaluate it, like if you're a sports team and you look at their defense, you look at their offense, you look at all the ways that they can beat you, and then you figure out the game plan, and then you say to yourself, what are we not thinking of? So I'm curious to know, what are we not thinking of, rather? What are we missing here? Are we missing anything? Or does this legislation do a pretty good job of covering some of these holes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he makes a great point there. Yeah, I think if we're talking about what we're missing, it might be the other projects outside of the government, like Galileo and Sky 360. And I think that if we get down the line and the government doesn't find anything, and these other programs don't find anything either, then I think that we are probably in the place that UFO Jesus would say we would be in. But
well, I would be in a place of, well, then it's got to be secret tech. It's got to be U.S. tech. There's got to be a level of technology that they're not sharing with us. If these attributes to these vehicles are correct, but the fact that they're non-human controlled is incorrect, then that leaves me to believe that, we've figured out something technologically speaking. And to me, that's still a huge story. Like, why do we not know about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there still is a possibility that it is, some weird atmospherical conditions or optical illusions. Like, I don't want that to be true, but I think that we have to, at least consider that as a possibility. Right. And there's another possibility, which is that there are things here, but they are literally undetectable. Maybe they are, the size of a couple atoms or something, and we'll never be able to find them. It's hard to prove a negative, so it'll be an interesting situation if we don't find anything. Hopefully, we do.
Speaking of that, Jane made a beautiful point in our WhatsApp chat, and let me find what she said here because I want to read it because it was a good question. And she says, question, let's say I'm an alien and I want to fly around Earth undetected and try to blend in. If I put a U.S. Air Force sticker on my spacecraft, would that mean I'd stay under Avi Loeb's radar and stay top secret? I'm only half asking / joking. It really is amazing the assumptions we have to make when talking about aliens. Even Cogswell said, if UFOs are real, they are rare. I would suggest to rephrase that to, if modern day UFOs are real, they are rare or rarely leave clear physical evidence for civilians to study. We seem to be okay with making assumptions that aliens are more advanced than us, but we don't necessarily then assume that the aliens could actively and successfully hide from us. And I thought that was such a wonderful, beautiful, simple point, Jane. Do you want to elaborate on that, or does that?
No, I like it better when you read things I said. It makes it sound so much better.
It was amazing. It was a good point. It's one that I mean, obviously, I think it's something that you think about, but I don't think I ever sat and actually considered it. Oh yeah, wait a second. So if we're assuming these are ultra intelligent, non-human entities, then why would they not be able to hide from us at the easiest? It should be, if they could traverse galaxies, they should be able to hide from us very easily. Mm-hmm. Or at least in the spectrum of light that a human eyeball can see in. And I think that's where they maybe run into some mistakes, because they are, I mean, John Ramirez said that airport radar doesn't catch these things, and I totally disagree. Airport radar has caught these things.
Yeah, I think what he's saying, not all of them have a phased array radar.
Got it.
Not even within the universe of what the Princeton has. That's one of the most advanced radar in the world.
That obviously makes sense.
And by the way, Ryan Graves
popped up on older radar systems.
Mm-hmm. They have.
in airports all across the country.
And Ryan Graves said that there were those craft that he saw that he could not see in day VFR conditions, which is visual flight rules, meaning clear clouds, but yet in the IR spectrum, he could see them. So I think they can show themselves when they want to show themselves, and they don't when they don't want to show themselves. But the technology, when I look at Tic Tac, is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. When you hear the descriptions and the narratives of it, and I extrapolate where aviation has come since 1903 until now, and how far we haven't gotten. And then I look at something like how fast something that's developed at Area 51, like let's take the SR-71, for example. So it came out in about 62. Then you saw the SST, the supersonic transport that would go London and New York, in 1969. So it didn't take a long time. Then you saw the Atlas rocket of the 1960s, and then you see the Dragon rocket today still using parachutes, and it's the exact same technology. So that leads me to believe that we haven't. I also know the kind of technologies that we're purchasing right now, and they are nowhere in the same universe as what this thing can do, without wings to be able to maneuver and enter into a. So let's say in a lab right now that you have a scientist that has been able to advance an anti-gravity property. He's able to make something lift up and then it sits down. And he's, oh my God, I've broken it. I actually was able to produce some anti-gravity. There is a huge ocean between being able to actualize that in a controlled environment in a laboratory and then being able to enter into a tactical engagement where, by the way, they were doing something over the water that was making the water bubble that we haven't figured out. We can only guess. Maybe they were extracting hydrogen for energy. We have no idea what they were doing. But then it enters into a mano-a-mano tactical engagement with an FA-18 and then heads off to a predetermined point at hyperspeed without breaking the sound barrier. So if that technology existed, I can assure you we'd be flying those technologies over Moscow tomorrow and say, don't mess with Crimea.
I want to add to UFO Jane's great point, and that is, hey, look, if 1,000 years from now we improve our propulsion system enough so that we're flying the Tic Tacs, who's to say that human beings visiting another planet are not going to want to be detected by the populace? Who is to say that? I mean, I could see even from my own psychology, from my own species psychology, I could see us coming up with reasons to not impact the delicate foundation of that culture or to try to influence in a specific way. I came up with an axiom a long time ago that goes like something like this. I don't have it written out now, but it goes something like this. The more advanced the civilization becomes, the less random everything they do is. So the way I see it is if we're being visited by a non-human intelligence, it may not just be exclusively science. And I don't know why anyone would make that assumption. There may be an objective for influencing our civilization. And a component of that objective may be creating this debate we're having right now. Maybe trying to make us more humble as a species, because what has happened in the past 80 years? Our institutions and many of our smartest people have said, if there was non-human intelligence here, I would know. We would know. And they have
Elon Musk.
they have taken that to the bank to an extent that I think is inappropriate. The other thing I wanted to say is like the skeptics do have a good argument, though. It is a good argument. I've never said it's not a good argument. It's a good argument to say, what about all the cell phones? Why aren't they picking up these vehicles? Why aren't the security cameras picking up these vehicles? That is not a bad argument. My problem with that argument is it makes too many assumptions. It makes the assumption that, well, there's no way that they have artificial intelligence, that's 10,000 years superior to our artificial intelligence, and they're determining when they want to be seen and when they don't want to be seen. Ross Coulthart made an amazing point in an interview. He's like, well, hey, if there's any truth to the proposition that UAP have taken nuclear ICBMs offline with all of that shielding, then listen, they can mess with your camera. They might be even able to mess with your consciousness. They may have such sophisticated artificial intelligence that they have a broad spectrum view of their surrounding. They know exactly where every little biological creature is. They know what's in their pocket. They know what they're going to do. They can manipulate the consciousness. Now, all of that sounds like mumbo jumbo sci-fi right now. But guess what? You take an iPhone and you go back to the 15th century, the 14th century, that's mumbo jumbo sci-fi that should not exist and is scientifically ridiculous. Well, you know what? I think there's probably a lot of quote unquote scientifically ridiculous things that will ultimately exist. And how old is our universe, right? There could be civilizations that are hundreds of millions, have a head start on us from hundreds of millions of years prior to us. They may have had computers for millions of years. How long have our species had computers? Very short time. We have a profound level of hubris as a species. And the fact that in unison, our greatest institutions that we're all supposed to look up to have said, Nope, almost 0% chance that any UAP stemmed from non-human civilization, to me, was an intellectual mistake that made too many assumptions, and it has an arrogance and hubris tethered to that level of certainty. I don't mind skeptics. I don't mind people giving me their argument, but don't tell me you're 99.99999% sure. We know barely nothing about the universe. How can you be that sure? And so that's all I got to say about that.
No, it's true. I mean, we don't even have a pure grasp of gravity yet. So to even go beyond that, it's you're right. There's no hubris there. But I would say you don't even need to really go back as far as the 15th century. All you need to do is sit in a Tesla.
Yeah.
Like sit in a Tesla and drive in a Tesla and see how spatially aware that vehicle is and how many things it knows that are around it. It can decipher, okay, I got to stop. I got to go left. I got to go right. I got to reverse. There's a person on a bicycle here. There's a truck here. I mean, it lays out for you all the things around you within a 20-foot radius. I'm thinking somewhere around there, maybe even bigger. And so I could see that technology easily being transformed to, oh, there's a guy with a cell phone taking a picture of me. There's that could extend in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways in 100, 200, 300, 5,000 years. Like it would be very interesting.
At least we should have it on the table. I'm not saying that's the way it is. I'm just saying hold your horses, person. Hold your horses. That could be the situation. Don't assume it's not. Just because there's no photographs in someone's cell phone or security cameras doesn't mean that rules it out. Doesn't even get anywhere near ruling that potentiality out. And of course, the obvious rebuttal is, well, how come the governments get all the data? Well, I don't know. I have a whole hypothesis called alien AI hypothesis. I'm not going to go into it. But if you wanted to manipulate a civilization, I think a very good way would be to set up your governments as liars. And how would you do that? Well, I don't think it would be that hard. For example, if you look at the Roswell, you intentionally crashed something during the Cold War. What do you think those military generals are going to decide? You think they're going to decide, yeah, let's tell the whole world? No, they're not. And then you maybe you have some very impressive technology that can take all the information and game plan, so you kind of can predict what's going to happen in a way that right now we would think is just science fiction. So if you wanted to pit your governments against civilization, I think a good way would be to set up a UFO cover-up. And let's just put it this way. If a civilization 10,000 years ahead of us wanted to interact with our civilization in a way that was extremely prone for governments to harness a policy of not saying anything, I think the alien intelligence could probably do it. I mean, it's like their level of counterintelligence, their level of manipulation would be so much further beyond ours.
Yeah, I mean,
they
playing
can easily manipulate us.
Chess.
Yeah, exactly.
They're playing 3D chess and wearing checkers. But I'll be curious to know what Nathan thinks on this topic. I mean, I know you have sort of a deep philosophical mind, so I'm curious to know where you're coming from on what Ryan's saying here.
Nathan, break out the pipe, man. Show him the pipe.
I do have that.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
There you go. Nice.
So, I mean, I think Ryan, you're spot on. I think we have to leave a lot of room for mystery here, and hold a lot of this in suspension. And I find it's sort of funny and sad in a way that our lives are so short, because our grasp of history is it's so poor. You know, we can read about it, but we're not really able to experience it that well. And so, you know, from what I look at this, I look at any scientist 100 years ago, and the confidence in their ideas. You know, some of those that we would lay bare and just laugh at right now. And so, you know, if you're a scientist now, it's almost like it's a blessing and a curse. We need our scientists to be confident, and science is teaching us a lot of things. At the same time, this quality of humility and what we may not know, you know, is often lacking in those departments, particularly the further along that you get. You know, you kind of get very entrenched, and departments in academia are structured like this, and you get super entrenched in your specialty to a point where it's hard for you to really kind of think outside your own discipline. So, you know, we almost need a new science or a new way to, you know, our own academia is stovepiped, right? So we've got to create more interdisciplinary connections with our thinking in order for us to approach this problem. I'm really intrigued by the sort of bigger story here, right? So the legislation is clearly pointed at a certain direction. We want to know what it is that we have been able to capture, observe, analyze, from our data standpoint, try to understand what that is, but extrapolating out from that, like what is really going on, so if we talked to Dr. Diana Pasulka a couple of days ago, and the kinds of conclusions that she was coming to after having spoken with some of these people closest to this issue, and people like Jacques Vallée and others in the Invisible College that we don't even know, who are in some of these programs. I mean, the conclusions that they're coming to, at least for me, are pretty disturbing, and I'm talking about some very strong religious convictions that I personally need more information to understand how they're landing there. She's telling us that people who are incredibly smart, who may have grown up religious and then become complete atheists, and have dove headfirst into all of our science and eschewed the things that they were taught in religion, have now come full circle into devout religious belief. And she doesn't use the word fundamentalist, so I'm not saying that they even are fundamentalists. It's just that they are devout believers. Now I have questions upon questions as to what's going on there. So does that mean that whatever they're studying is literally pointing to some sort of existence of God, angels, and demons? Well, I mean, I have big questions about that. That to me is a huge sort of cognitive jump that I'm unwilling to make. But nevertheless, I can't debate what she's telling me, that they're coming to these conclusions. So it's very strange. And I, when I read this stuff, and I
real quick, because Red Panda Koala is asking, and I am curious as well, what are some of the conclusions that they were coming up with?
Yeah, so I mean, she's sort of what I just hinted at. She's saying that it really surprised her, the number of people that sort of big names that we don't know they believe this, but they do, who have very strong religious conviction and belief. All right, so they are devout, and she put it this way: they're not your Easter and your big ticket Christian sort of observance attendees. They are everyday devotees of Christianity. That's essentially what she was saying. So I am I gotta say that really, it worries me on many levels that the people who are closest to this and may have the levers of power and control are coming to those conclusions. I got to get more information in order to understand why that is. All right. So, and look, there may be lots of different factions at play here, and I think we've been hearing that, but when you look at Jacques Vallée, who's been studying this for forever, and he's basically telling you, like, he doesn't have a firm conclusion on what this is. I mean, that should tell us something, that we're not going to come to some easy answers with this, no matter what it is. And as uncomfortable as it is, and as ridiculous sounding as it is about, dino beavers or whatever, if that's the kind of stuff that people who are studying this are seeing, we're going to have to grapple with some of that. What does that really mean?
No, that's a good point. DJ, I know you wanted to follow up.
Yeah, I just want to say, and I actually think after this comment, Rather might like me after this one, but it's possible.
I like leave you, DJ.
Leave it open.
Just stop yelling into your microphone, for God's sake.
I'm sorry, man.
No, what were you gonna say?
For Klimt, I was gonna say that when we look at making assumptions, and I think Ryan was alluding to this, when we're making assumptions about what the phenomenon thinks, feels, is going to do, isn't going to do, I don't know.
Capable of doing.
Is capable. Thank you. I don't know, Lou, if you like green chili or red chili smothered on your burrito. I can't assume that I know that.
Well, so if you had to take a guess, though, which one would you say?
I mean, you're not from Albuquerque, so if you live near Alien Girl, I would say green chili. But then again, some Albuquerqueños will mix. They'll have red and green. But if I had to take a guess, I'll say red.
All right, yeah, I tend to go green, but that's okay.
Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So that was an exercise right there, a scientific exercise. I can't assume what Luis likes to smother his burrito on. So
I'm
from
green,
that,
by the way.
oh, thank you, thank you, my man Ryan. Man, we have to go and have Mexican with his brother. But the point is that the Neil deGrasse Tysons of the world, and even people that are from our own community, #UFO Twitter, which we love, will assume what another intelligence thinks. And I can't assume what Luis likes on his burrito, but yet I'm going to pretend to all of you that I know what another intelligence is going to do or is not going to do. And think about how ridiculous that is.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I have a question for the whole panel when you guys are ready.
Yeah, go for it. What do you got, rather?
Well, I was just going to say, I totally agree with you. You know, speak of another alien intelligence, it could be literally beyond our comprehension. It might not think like us at all, and we might not be able to even comprehend its intentions.
Well, that reminds me of that book, Ender's Game, where these creatures that were looked like they were attacking us were just trying to say hello. Like they didn't know how to communicate with humans, and it seemed like a horrific attack when in reality they were just trying to say, hey, here we are. And then we completely transformed our planet to destroy everything about their species, and then ultimately succeed at doing so. And it's not until the end that they find out the real purpose of why they made contact and all of these things. And it's a really good, it's actually, I think my favorite book of all time is Ender's Game. Highly recommend reading it. But yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. But DJ, what's your question for the group?
So really, I mean, this goes to like Lou's theory about that some of these beings and grays are the future us, which I think is possible. But I have to ask you about the 4-finger thing, because like imagine now, you've just left a Skinwalker Ranch, you lasered some bovine jaw, you took off in the Tic Tac, you're like, I'm going to head southwest. You go to like San Diego, you see Dave Fravor, you're like, oh, let me mess with this guy a little bit. You know, let's do a little end around. He's going to do a 60-degree bank, and then we're going to take off. And meanwhile, you know, inside there, they have their hydrogen-powered grill going, and they're going to make something like an ET barbecue, right? And when you make the, you know, like the bovine burgers, Lou, and you know this, you get to that point in the barbecue where you got to take the cap off the brand new pickles. Now, we don't have the opposable thumb. So how are we going to evolve? You know, if they evolved like, you know, more than us, how the hell are they opening the pickle jars?
Well,
Lou, please.
Okay, I think I'll answer this, and I don't know if the rest of the crew wants to answer this. First of all, I have no clue, because I've never seen one of these beings, so the 4-finger theory, I have no idea. But from my understanding of it, you could still have 3 fingers and an opposing thumb, and it still works as almost as, I would assume, as good as a 5-finger opposing thumb hand.
To open a pickle jar when they're having a barbecue aboard Tic Tac.
Look, if you're using your mind to open pickle jars, do you really need that 5th finger?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
like
That's the answer.
Jane, what do you think?
I think you could probably figure it out without the opposable thumb. But it's
honestly,
I think the Force. And they're probably their pickle jars are just designed very differently.
What do you got,
that would be my guess.
So they're just going like that, too.
Once humans develop telekinesis, our thumbs are going to atrophy.
Right.
And
we don't need them.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I mean,
I've been wondering. I really appreciate you guys clearing that up for me. Thank you, panel.
RG with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. He's got a question. Even with legislation, will we be forced to start from scratch with the new program studies, or will Congress be able to get their hands on all the info? It sounds like, and if I'm not mistaken, reading D.D. Johnson's article, it sounds like they are. Is this new office going to be absorbing what used to be the ATIP office? That's correct,
UAPTF.
right? Yeah, so they're absorbing the UAPTF, which worries me a little bit because of the whole AOI, MSG, DOD aspect of things. And I know we've talked about that sort of ad nauseum on the channel, but you know, this is not the Senate bill. This is a congressional bill. So again, it's still the crocodile, but with a lot less teeth. And also the verbiage changed a bit. But what are you gonna say, rather?
I think in the language they do say that they want reports on everything prior to 2004. Anything that hasn't been disclosed, they want to have a report on it. So I don't think they are going to be studying.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be gathering information.
And they task the intelligence community with providing data of any relevant UFO cases. And if remember, because I've said it a lot because I was obsessed with this detail, this is the intelligence community as defined in the 1947 National Security Act. So it would go back, to all those agencies that were listed.
And here's another thing that is a beautiful thing about this legislation, and this is direct from D.D. Johnson, and it says, in contrast to the Gillibrand-Rubio-Gallego amendment, text requires the UAP office to issue annual unclassified reports on UAP, which will be made public. 8 designated congressional committees will receive longer classified versions of these reports, and 6 of those panels will also receive classified briefings at least twice a year. So that's let's see here, 5 reports looks like in the entire year, looked over by 8 different committees, 2 of which, six of those panels will also receive classified briefings twice a year. So that's a lot more awareness among lawmakers. I think you're going to, because of these congressional committees, you're going to get more Tim Burchetts to pop up. You're going to get more Ruben Gallegos to pop up because now they're being briefed on this. I think you're going to get more Gillibrands. Like we were discussing on the channel the other day. Where did Gillibrand go? We never heard her say ever anything remotely close having to do with UAP. And Jazz's explanation was really simple.
Her kids.
She's been briefed.
Yeah, been briefed.
She's been briefed in classified settings, and she's clearly, especially with her pedigree, she's known for protecting armed services members, especially women who've been sexually assaulted within the military. She is a huge advocate for that, and I think part of this for her is that she sees a lot of our men and women who are in very, very responsible positions are coming to her in classified briefings and telling her, hey, you need to look at this. This is a problem. We're seeing this off of our coast, both coasts, in some cases every day. We're chasing them, we're recording them, and they're falling into a hole of information that's not being reported to the proper people. And so you need to get something in place that not only categorizes these things, but then they go somewhere and they're analyzed and they're looked at over, and then there's a report given with some oversight to it. So that's the difference here. This is where the meat of this really comes into play, and why this is. There was somebody online today yelling at D.D. Johnson and at Snake Plissken and at Lou Elizondo and all these guys, like, how is this different? How is this different than OSAP? How is this different from Blue Book? How is this different from Condon? And I just got a couple of things to say to that, especially when it comes to Condon and Blue Book. There were 6 channels on television when those reports were given. There was no internet. There was no way for people to communicate, communities to get together on a moment's notice and contact the representatives, contact lawmakers, contact whoever they need to contact and to get their opinion expressed. Before, it used to be you had to write a letter, or you would make a phone call and maybe somebody would pick up. I mean, now they call you back, they email you back. We've gotten so many responses from the big phone home. I've gotten responses from my Congress and senators, and they're paying attention. This is because, again, like when Gillibrand texts about this, there's no other text on. I mean, she just tweeted out today about something that got completely nuked in this Senate proposal, and it got almost no love. Like, nobody was like, I was like, hey, Senator Gillibrand, who do we have to contact to help you with this part of the bill? Let us know. And because we should show them support on other things other than UAP centric laws and bills. We should show them support on other things that they're passionate about, so that they see, okay, they've won some political points here. They've got a little bit more political juice when it comes to making laws or suggesting new laws or things, like this amendment, the Gillibrand amendment that now has leaked itself into Congress. And because of her amendment, we got this congressional bill. I mean, this congressional bill was pretty lackluster until that Gillibrand amendment was put forth. So, I mean, these are all one things that vastly different than anything that has been done ever before. You really have to understand that. Like, this is not the same old blue book BS. This is going to be different, and it's not going to be different if we sit on our hands and don't do. We, as a community, we have to hold these lawmakers accountable and say, hey, in 2021, you promised us this. We want the reports. If they're not good enough, we should hold their feet to the fire. We should call their offices and bug the hell out of them until we get the reports that satisfy our needs. And I think they can do both. They can keep it secret. They could keep national security a priority, but they could also be honest with the American people and the taxpayers that are paying for these toys and these instruments and everything that is collecting the data on this. And I'll end on this. I think Chris Cogswell made a wonderful point yesterday during the show that, and this kind of goes to what you were saying, rather, about being worried if Galileo ends up being controlled by a government agency or whatever. He's like, it doesn't matter. Whatever the data is that's the beautiful thing about science. You put out the data, science is going to rip it apart. They're going to murder board it. And if it doesn't hold up to the science, then we can go back to you and say, no, this isn't good enough. So either way, we win. Whether Galileo is part of the government and has government oversight or it's its own free entity.
But the Galileo's buying all of their own equipment. They're buying all the telescopes off the shelf.
Yeah, I don't think...
unless you're like an over-the-top conspiracy theorist,
right?
And you're going to argue that Avi Loeb is in bed with the Pentagon. I mean, he's funding it himself through donors. So
no, I think that's
there is
clear.
There is no connective tissue to the government.
I think the worry was, though, when the first amendment version of the amendment came out, the Gillibrand amendment, was that, the government is Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon are going to have a say in this, which means the data automatically, right off the bat, before you even start looking, is corrupted because you're getting information. It should just be pure science. Let's go out and let's look for it on our own. We don't need any clues. Let's try and prove it on our own. Whereas if you get Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo in there, they might go, hey guy, you might want to point over here. You might want to use this instrument with this telescope and record it at this frequency, and you might be surprised what you get. And the fear was, well, that's not science. And I think, well, yeah, it kind of is, because they're going to have results. They're going to have to display those results, and then those results will be picked apart by the scientific community. So either way, it's going to be verified or debunked.
Absolutely.
Either way you slice it. So the point is that we got our cake and we get to eat it too. And it's not even over yet. Like we still have, who knows what could happen with the Senate version of things. Who knows? We may get a couple more things put in there before this NDAA is finalized. So just stay tuned and make sure you keep contacting your reps. Make sure you're still in their ear. And we got a lot of work to do, but today is a day where we get to say, hey, you know what? This is going to be law in the next couple of weeks. The U.S. government, you think I'm crazy? Really? Well, the U.S. government might spend $2.3 billion to look at my craziness. So just check yourself before you wreck yourself, because they're not going to spend $2.3 billion, even if it's $100 million, even if it's $50 million. That's a lot of money to be spending on something that most people think there's nothing to. If there's nothing to it, why are we spending the money? Why are we allocating resources? Why are we writing laws? Why are we getting senators and congressmen? This is a psyop. You are going to prison for the rest of your life if this turns out to be a psyop where you got congressmen and senators to approve a budget that you secretly wanted for whatever nefarious reasons. If that's the case,
let's throw the Chinese and Russians off, and all the members of Congress are involved in playing their part. Yeah, I don't think so.
I find it tough to believe, but yeah, what do you got?
May I ask you something, sir?
Yeah, and we got to wrap up.
Yes, sir. It's a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a response from Marco Rubio? I assume that you have messaged Marco. Yes,
I've messaged Marco a ton.
Mm-hmm.
No, to answer your question.
What is your I know you have 2 minutes. Do you think that he's just not prone to do it at this point in his political career?
Who the hell am I? I think if I caught him coming outside of a public building,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to get him one-on-one like a TMZ style, I think he'd have no issue talking with me whatsoever. I just don't think a senator of that high profile, their day is filled with things to do. And I just don't. This show, as much as I think my show is just peachy, it's not that big yet to a point where we could demand a sitting U.S. senator in a major state to come and talk with us for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. I would love to talk to him for an hour, but that would just be an absolute just Hail Mary. But does that mean I'm going to stop trying? Hell no. Eventually we're going to get him.
On all the members of Congress's response to whatever they saw during the classified briefings.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with some skeptics that we cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, assume that what they saw was high fidelity data clearly demonstrating something truly weird.
Yeah.
That's true. But we also can't assume that it's just like what Jason Colavito tries to promote, that it's just a mind virus. And this is the result of the workings of Robert Bigelow and Harry Reid and George Knapp. I mean, that is really not objective. They're all basically saying the same thing, that, gee, I hope it's not Chinese or Russian, because if it is, we're in trouble. Something has led them to that. Could it be a mind virus? Yes. Is it definitely a mind virus? No, not even close.
Yeah. Well, I know behind the scenes, Jazz Shaw's trying to get us
Jazz.
The Gillibrands and the Rubios, and I know he's trying, and who knows, man? Maybe one day we get lucky and they're in the right mood. We catch them on the right time, on the right day, and they'll come on for 5 minutes and let us bend their ear. But I mean, we just got to wait and see.
This would be the perfect place to leak the unclassified UFO documents, just say.
Yeah. Rather's email address is.
If you're going to leak anything, please consider our show to do so. I know John Greenwald's not going to appreciate it, but hey, I like it. Give him leak away. All right. So with that said, I'm gonna give the floor to DJ. DJ, real quick, tell the folks where they can find Calling All Beings and your final thoughts, sir.
At Calling Beings on Twitter, at A Waif Soul for Nathan, at call_all_beings. If you're a special ed kid out there, holler at me. I'm going to talk to you about how that you can go and do anything you want to do. Don't let any adult or any child tell you that you can't do just because you're a special ed kid, because I'm going to tell you that you can.
You're the man. DJ, I love you, buddy.
Love you too, Luis. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon, dude.
It's an honor, brother.
Yeah, peace. Nathan, same thing. I mean, he just basically told us where we can find the show. But I mean, do you have any closing thoughts on today's conversation?
It's a new day, guys. More people will be talking about this. More questions will be asked about this. The momentum is moving, and I'm excited for it. Let's have that conversation, right? We're not crazy. Alien Girl says this, and I really like it. She's like, we're not crazy. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
What issues can Congress agree on? Very few, and we have Republicans and Democrats both signing on to this. Let's start right there, and have a conversation that brings us together.
I think that's a very good point, and she's absolutely right. Like, we're not crazy, and now there's going to be a law to sort of hopefully solidify that feeling. Yep. Because I want to know what the hell I saw. But dude, I appreciate you, man. I really enjoyed the conversation. I can't wait to have you back on again, and we'll see you soon, my friend.
Sounds good.
All right, ciao. Ryan Robbins, I'm so happy you made it today, man. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I know it's a rarity to get you on shows like this, but I knew you'd be pumped today, and I wasn't wrong. You brought the fire. You brought the fire. Dude, give us some closing points, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I have one closing point. One closing point. The rhetoric of the U.S. government in the UFO report in June 2020, was it 2021 or 2020? Sorry, I'm tired. But the UFO report that they provided is what inspired Avi Loeb to look into this issue further. And he has stated that The U.S. government is the most conservative organization he knows of. And for them to say even remotely what they said was impressive to him. And he also stated that he thinks that the information they have that they shared is like the tip of the iceberg. So if the rhetoric of the U.S. government is leading to a Harvard scientist saying stuff like me, the U.S. government has a problem if they don't really have that data. If they don't have good data unambiguously showing something really weird, then they need to come out about that ASAP, because this conversation is going in a direction where everyone is leaning in that direction and not being skeptical of that. So if they don't have the data, come out and say so. Otherwise, you are giving me every justification in the universe to perceive you have more data that demonstrates something really mysterious.
Yeah. Well, I will say, if ATIP had $22 million and we got the Go Fast, the gimbal, and the Tic Tac video, and we got the New York Times revelations, we got all of the pilots that have been on the record just from that small little secret, nothing to do program.
Oh,
Imagine what we're going to get with a $2.3 billion budget, a congressional report every year, and 4 classified briefings going to Congress. That's going to have an impact. It may not be immediate, but I guarantee you 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it's going to
Avi Loeb is going to have a lot of competition. Let's just put it that way.
A lot of competition. I think you're right. Ryan Robbins, Post Disclosure World, UFO Jesus. Thank you so damn much for being here and pontificating as well as you do. Before you go, please tell everyone where they can find your work, sir.
Yeah, you can just look up Post Disclosure World, or you can even look up UFO Jesus. Some people call me that, but I'm on YouTube and I'm on Twitter at Post Disclosure.
All right, my man. You're a beautiful soul. I can't wait to talk to you again. We have to do this again soon, maybe at the end of the year, because we got a lot to celebrate at the end of this year. And I can't wait for next year. So here's to next year, and we'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Woo!
That was great.
Great show.
Yeah, quite the party.
Quite the party. Wow, that was an unexpected party. Oh, gotta love him. Gotta love DJ. All right, guys. So we've had a busy week, but what are we working on? Anything fun, Jane?
Yeah, I know. I keep teasing the Jason McClellan interview. When it comes out, you guys will see why this is taking so long, because it's more than just an interview. But got Weird Hollywood this Friday talking Armageddon, and then I'm gonna be on the Quantum Witch Cafe after this. After this. Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's
Well,
Priscilla
guys,
Stone. So at 8:30
check
my
out-
time. 6:30.
Rather, do me a favor. Look
your
up
time.
Quantum Witch's YouTube link and put it in the chat so people can go to check out the UFO thing
So
on
in
the
like
channel.
a little over 20
That'll be
minutes
really
from now.
fun. Yeah, we'll go check it out and have fun with you there. All right, Rather, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah, still working on some hypersonic stuff. Been a little bit behind, but hope to get a video out hopefully this weekend. So subscribe at Rather Be Squidding.
There you go. And by the way, everybody's links are available in the description below. I'll be adding Ryan Robbins' link to the description as soon as the show is over. Want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Want to say thank you to all of our guests, everyone in the super chats, and everyone in the chat in general, and also all of our moderators. Thank you guys for keeping the chat a fun place to be. Want to remind you guys, this show and every show is available on iTunes and Spotify as soon as the show is over. So go, please leave us a rate and review. The podcast is growing so fast. It's really fun to watch. So yeah, the more you guys comment and rate, man, it really does help. So please do it. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share the channel. We do a show like this every day, including Thursdays on the Singularity Lab. So subscribe to both channels. If you want 5 days a week of this face, that face, and that face, we truly appreciate it. And what else? We got links for the merch store. We got links for everyone. Again, yeah, everyone's links are down below. Thank you all so damn much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez for UFO Jane Kyle and Rather Be Squidding, and everyone who was on the show. We'll see you guys on Friday, which, by the way, is going to be Frank Milburn. We were going to have Chris plane, but Chris couldn't make it. He had an emergency trip to San Diego. So we'll be having on Frank Milburn. We'll be breaking down the congressional report, and let's see what happens with this NDAA. I'd love to get his perspective on it because he really breaks these things down very, very well. So we'll see you guys Friday. We love you all. Stay safe out there. Peace.
Bye.
I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.